not everything that you love and you want to conduct your time with needs to be monetized.
Exactly. I have to tell people that all the time, because once you monetize it, sometimes you lose the love for it.
So this clip is from Tune the Fork podcast. And so let's see what he's talking about, and then we're going to talk about it.
I told my godson when he started making music, know your why early. Be clear on what that is, and then allow your subsequent decision making to reflect that, and the money will come. The minute you adjust that for money is the minute you lose. I don't give a if it's 5 minutes after you figure out your why. I don't care how much money they pay you for. If you gotta adjust that why to conform to get some money, is the minute you lose. What are you making the music for? What you do subsequent to answering that question will reflect the answer. And some of us don't want to be honest about that. So, but your work doesn't lie. Like the decisions that you make subsequent to answering the questions don't lie. If I get on here and say, I really just want to have connections, I don't care how many people watch, and then 6 months later I'm complaining that don't nobody watch it, then fucker, I just lied about my why.
Lie to yourself.
I lied to myself. Because the reality, because I honestly do care. What I've learned in this process is I said I didn't care in the beginning. And then once you start doing it and you don't get the reaction that you anticipated, your why starts cracking, and you really, because what you think the why is, sometimes you won't know until you start doing it. And it was getting tested. My why was getting tested, but I had to keep moving in spite of that. Because it will figure itself out. And I thought about doing a little slight like, give me an example. My why for this would be like, oh, well, what if I start talking about current affairs? Because nobody's watching. So now I'm thinking about how I can adjust to get more people to watch. When in my mind, I'm like, I'm jeopardizing the integrity of my why by even having this fucking conversation. Just keep doing what you're doing, James. However slow it may appear, it is moving you towards what it is that you say you want.
We'll pause it there.
I think what was the question that was posed?
I don't know. I don't know if there is a question that was posed necessarily. I guess, let me look.
More so, what do we think about that?
Well, let me see. So money versus purpose. And Mike has as a creative, but I'm tired of the word creative. So, what is more important and why as, I guess,
as a musician? Because, I mean, he's speaking as a musician.
Or I guess we could speak it just from in general.
From the arts?
The arts in general, yeah. So,
well, I'll make it very personal about this particular podcast, the New Old Heads. And I've said this before, one of the things that I think makes us great is that we don't shake ass. Right. We actually talk about things that we think are relevant, and we're not here to make friends either.
Yep.
We'll say things.
Shouts to 𝐀𝐁 Clark.
We say things that when we look at the comment sections, it's like, people are very, they disagree a great deal with some of our takes.
Yeah.
But we're not here. Look, I'll just say it. If we wanted to just get rich, we could have started shaking ass. If we just and we could have been kissing ass to try to get sponsorship with people who we don't have any real interest in. Instead, we decided we're going to put out a product that's great to the people who actually enjoy this kind of content. I think that's a big difference in what a lot of people do. Like you said, what is your why? Our why was to be not provocative for the sake of being provocative, but provocative to be thought-provoking and to spur conversation. I think that's one of the best things about the New Old Heads podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. We're just not, there's sometimes where, like, if we talked about this or we talked about certain things we talked about longer, things that don't make the final show, you might hear some wild if you're on Patreon,
for sure,
or you watch but when we're trying to put out the final product that many of you hear on Thursday,
that stuff's cut out.
Exactly. We cut a lot of that stuff out.
Stuff that, typically speaking, if I make clips of all the stuff that's cut out, that is the stuff that would go viral every week.
There's some people, they get into this for the money. I know somebody, a friend of mine, her and another young lady wanted to start a podcast, and, they did a couple of test episodes, sort of like what you guys did here, before you actually put out episodes for
we
people,
did 8.
Yeah, to consume. And, you know, she thought it was like, okay, we're going to get a couple episodes in and then we're going to have Budweiser and Mercedes-Benz hop on. Yeah, it's like, no, because you thought you were going to get into this and the money train was going to start running.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't get into this thinking you were going to do something great and impactful. You know, and so that's the difference, I think, you know, whether you be a DJ, whether you be a producer, whether you be an MC, because the way people get paid is so messed up now and so skewed, and you just, like, you can get on and do something provocative and still nobody's going to pay you for it. So you better do something that's close to your heart and that actually speaks to who you are as a creative, as opposed to just doing something you think people are going to like, because there's no guarantee if you do something that you just think people are going to like that you're going to get paid anyway. So you better do something that's close to your heart, because that's one of the only thing that's going to motivate you.
Yeah.
That's the part. Because if you get tired of doing the thing of the thing that shakes the ass, if you get tired of that, which you're going to get tired of after a while, what's going to motivate you to keep going? It's not from a place of wanting to do anything.
And say you get
outside of shaking the
you know,
ass.
you get the reaction that you want and they decide to throw, you know, put some money in your hand for shaking ass. You're going to have to do that for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Now you're pigeonholed. It's at the end of the day, it's self-exploitation.
Yep.
So it's almost like, do you want to sell yourself short by doing that one little thing that's going to get an extra eye on you?
You'll be a hoe forever. Versus
your whole plan. Yeah, who wants to do that, man? It's like, why wouldn't you remain true to yourself and true to, if like you're saying, the podcast, we're moving as a unit. So why wouldn't you remain true to that, you know what I'm saying, the absolute stance that you stood on from the beginning?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It pretty much puts you in a hole, and a lot of people do that because we're in a time of clicks and clickbait and trying to go viral. You're trying to go viral and you lose the whole sense of why you're here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense at the end of the day. So.
And there's a balance to it too. Like, there's a difference between trying things out and you know, and changing who you are as well. You know, like,
if you change for the better.
For sure. I think we're constantly evolving the things that we're doing. We're constantly evolving how we approach things and getting better at everything. I think that's naturally part of it. And I think another piece to what you said, outside of just the shaking ass aspect of it, maybe sometimes going too far left of what you want the show to do. We've had the conversation, sticking to the theme of the podcast, of our show. We've had many conversations about doing guests on the show. We tried guests out for a very long time. My Brother to the Night was one of the first people that we brought on as a guest. Back when we were doing guests, you know, actually Jay Moore was the first person we brought on as a guest.
Yeah. But I just wanted to talk about what you guys were talking
for sure.
about.
And, but we've had, you know, like, we had our backstage series for a while where we were doing interviews and stuff, but we, you know, one thing that I have personally always been adamant about with our show is, like, I don't want to break up the conversations that we have around the table about a said topic. And I don't want it to turn into a conversation about a particular person at the table. It's like, it's supposed to be about the culture that we're a part of. You know, that's what it's supposed to be about. And then as soon as you start introducing other people involved in that, to the shouts to the video that we just watched, it does pull away from your why a little bit, because then you're like, all right, well, I can utilize this person to bring their viewership, their eyes on what we're doing. It could potentially, we talked about this a couple weeks ago too, like about potentially bringing people, you know, on, like, and all this stuff. I think there's ways to do it, but you have to make sure that you're following within the integrity of what your purpose is, of what you want to accomplish. And your purpose can change, but I think that's very, very important as well, because it could not even be shaking ass. It could just be like, well, I'm going to pivot now. Maybe you shouldn't pivot, you know, and maybe it depends on the type of pivot that you're doing too. If we start to randomly be like, you know what, our politics segments do really good, let's just talk about the election now.
Yeah, nah.
That we're not going to do that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah.
No, I mean, it's just, you know, and I've made this example before, but, you know, I know we gain new viewers and followers all the time. Think about, like, Jimmy Walker.
Dynamite.
He is still saying dynamite 50 years later because someone says, hey, you need to say the thing if you want to get this check.
Yep.
And if he's cool with that, then cool. God bless him. But, you know, there's a certain part of they don't really care about Jimmy Walker. They want to see JJ. And
that's why Gary Coleman was so mean and surly.
Yeah, because it was still wanted him to be like, what you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, they didn't care about him as a person.
Yeah.
Or really anything that he had to say. So, I mean.
Well, these people weren't philanthropists or superb actors, so to speak, either. They kind of pretty much put in that position and hoard out and made to do that, and then didn't go anywhere else with it.
And they were kids.
They were children. Yeah. At least in Gary Coleman. Yeah. So like that's where like, but you know, I mean, but once again, there are a lot of people who are like, man, I wish I had somebody who would pay me to say a catchphrase.
Yeah. You know, there's always somebody willing to be a hoe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all day. There's a site called OF. We just talked about it.
It'd be like if because I performed a wedding. Shout to this weekend. Shout to Desi Des, you know, and the Saxtons. Shout to them. But you know, just imagine if they said, "Well, we're not going. You can't get nothing from the buffet. We don't have a check for you unless you say if you don't tip, you're an asshole." You know what I'm saying? Like, luckily, you know that's what some people know. Mm-hmm. But I'm still able to work and be able to do my thing without having to yell that every time I go somewhere.
Right.
You know, but. Because if that was all they were looking for, I'd be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, there's always work at the post office. Shout out to Robert Townsend.
Man, I had a very small sizing of that, you know what I mean, on my previous podcast, you know what I mean? Like, shout out to the Drunken Knights.
Yes, sir.
I would go out and meet people from the pod from out of town from every once in a while, and they would be like, man, say B word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm here, so
yeah.
but you know what I mean, that was one of the things that they wanted to hear me say and stuff, and I'm like, man, you know, I don't just want to be just out doing that right now. I don't feel like that right now.
It's like when I mean, and it happens in a way that almost you can't control, because I remember when Dave Chappelle was like, you know, I'm Rick James. I guess I just said it.
Yeah.
You know, you trying to get away from it. He's like, first of all, I'm not Rick James, and I'm at Disney World with my kids right now because you leave me alone.
Yeah, that was an interesting time and place when that was going on. So I can only imagine what he was going through. I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty much about, and this can be with any facet of life, whatever you're doing, remain true to yourself. Your integrity is the only thing that you have. So if you set a plan in place, you should probably follow it, especially if it's a good plan and you start wondering or worrying about the money, because I think that's what he was alluding to.
So it's about money.
Worried about getting paid.
Money versus purpose, essentially.
Right.
You know?
So if the money's not coming fast enough, then you're like, well, I need to redo my plan because the money's not coming right now. But you might have to just keep on grinding or keep hustling and sticking true to the plan that you initially set out, and it's going to happen. Maybe it won't.
And I think this goes down to where I jump a little bit deep into the societal realms of everything, because it's like if the thing is money versus purpose, I think naturally the way when we think of integrity, we don't really ever think about money. Money is never the conversation when we talk about integrity.
No.
It doesn't mean that money can't exist in the same place as integrity, but it's like when you think about building something that is great for humankind, for people alike, or whatever you're thinking, you're typically, the first thing you think about isn't money. It's like, is this a good idea? Is this something that is beneficial to the people around me, right? But in the society that we are built in, we are wired and framed and with pressures from society to say, well, it has to have both. It has to make money and it has to have purpose. And it's counterintuitive to like how we exist as people. There's society. This is why I always talk about capitalism. That's why I always do, is because it's counterintuitive to existing a lot of times. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that I have done in the past would never even have spawned or existed if I went into it thinking, man, it's got to make money as well, or I'm not going to do it.
It's because you're wired different.
For sure.
And a lot of us are. And that's the reason why our dichotomy works.
For sure.
But there's a lot of people out here that are ready to do anything in order to get the money.
Yeah.
And you see how many artistic people or creatives or, you know what I'm saying, anybody that has a plan in place, how everything changes as soon as they get the money.
Yep.
And there's a lot of artists that we enjoy now who are now filthy rich, and their product isn't the same because of the money. They essentially got
Oh, yeah.
I think about Kanye all the time because Kanye, I was one of the biggest Kanye fans ever, and it seems like once he tapped into a certain wealth level, he was not the same. We'll never get that guy back again. He's gone. He's way gone.
Once he
because he doesn't have, he doesn't have that same hunger or desire to get where he wants to be.
Because maybe his purpose was money.
It didn't seem like that though. It seemed like,
but maybe
his purpose was to get seen out here, or definitely to be seen. But he wanted his music to mean something to people. Yeah.
The guy
once
who made
it meant something to people, it was a wrap from there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
The reason I mentioned Drake was because when I was introduced to Drake, it was through Comeback Season.
Yeah.
And the artist that I heard on Comeback Season and the person that's putting out albums today is night and day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If I'm being honest, I mean, there are still remnants of that in his music. It's just a whole lot more childish now, you know, or maybe I was just in a different space when I heard Comeback Season. Of it. Yeah, it's possible. Know what I mean? So, but he's never grown, you know what I mean? So I've grown to who I am today. And when I hear the music then, I'm like, man, because I still resonate with some of that music from back then. But when I listen to the new records, I'm like.
Sometimes the connection that an artist has with his audience, like they're growing two different directions. Yeah. Like I felt like Kanye was a real reflection of where I was at when he first came out.
Absolutely.
Here's somebody who struggled with, you know, certain things as far as family, as far as wanting to be an artist, as far as wanting to be acknowledged. And now where he is so far away from where I am. And I mean,
I can't relate anymore.
I can't relate to, you know, who you are talking about, whatever it is you talk about. Because I'll be honest, like I said, I didn't listen to Vultures, and like, you know, I kind of checked out, you know, when he was talking about how hard it is to be rich. And you know, at the time I was making payment arrangements to keep my cell phone on. I don't want to hear about none of that shit. When artists first come out, they're not that far away from their audience because like they don't have it. They might be famous, but they're not rich.
Right.
You know, that's not the way it works. You know, but once an artist gets rich, it's hard for them to relate to the people who are their fans. Because it's like, okay, yeah, a bad day for you might be, I got a flat tire on my Bentley. You know, a bad day for me is like, you know, I went to the doctor and I can't figure out how I'm going to pay this bill. Mm-hmm. You know, you have no concept of what it is to make a decision between keeping your lights on and buying groceries, you know. And I'm not saying that, you know, everybody's fan base is broke and trying to figure it out, you know, because, you know, everybody has their ups and downs. But like, you know, when you're an artist, your downs are a lot different than the people.
You're so far gone to what people can resonate with. That's why I respect Jay-Z, regardless of how rich he is. He still makes music that is true to his existence, and it doesn't steer from kind of making you be like, ugh. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is he talking about? Why is he talking about this?
Fonte's the same way.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say Fonte too, because
he grew
you have somebody that's on the as far as monetarily rich, very rich standard, and then somebody that's
seems to be more like the common man.
Exactly. Yeah. He resonates with us more personally, but Jay-Z also resonates with me on a level to he's still remaining true to himself, because he's the same individual that put out Reasonable Doubt and pretty much was telling you street stories and telling you pretty much why not to do these types of things, to graduating to, okay, this is what you should do or try to do in order to get to this level, to, okay, this is my family situation and what I'm going through and how I'm trying to build these bricks in order for my kids to, you know.
Honestly, it sounds crazy. Jay-Z at his richest with 444 was probably the most relatable Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Because he was talking.
Because it was real.
He was talking about
family,
the struggles of what did you go through in relationships, you know, how to make sure your kids are okay. And, you know, even when you talk about like, you know, of course, I'm not able to invest on his level, but, you know, when you think about, okay, maybe I shouldn't spend $500 on an Xbox. Maybe I should buy $500 in in Microsoft stock. You know what I'm saying? Like when you talked about the thing about Dumbo, like that resonates with me in a different way.
Exactly.
If you talk about, you know, flipping bricks and big pimping, I couldn't relate to that shit then,
but it was,
and I can't relate to it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Money versus purpose. As a creative, what is more important? I think.
Don't be a whore.
Gotta be. The
I'm just saying.
It's got to be, because it's just got to be the purpose, you know. And the one last thing that I'll say,
unless money is your purpose,
for sure. And the last thing that I'll say is, like, not everything that you love to do, and I know some people will disagree with this, but not everything that you love and you want to conduct your time with needs to be monetized.
Exactly. I have to tell people that all the time, because once you monetize it, sometimes you lose the love for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you're just doing it because you desire to do it without adding anything else, any outside noise to it, you'll excel further than when you start to rely on it for money.
Yeah.
No, I
doesn't mean you don't have to want to make money from it, but it's like
you don't have to give up your services for free.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it's something that you love to do, it's not something that you're like, well, I can't pay my bills unless I charge this much.
Yeah.
Now it's not love. It's more so, I got to do this to survive.
No.
And once you go into survival mode, that's a whole different organ or situation that you got to
lost your purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I remember when I was still in college when I had a job on the radio, and I remember talking to one of my classmates, and they're like, man, I just love music. I would love to be on the radio. And I had to be like, look, if you're going to do radio, you got to love radio.
Yeah, straight
Because
up.
if you love music, radio will break your heart.
Yeah, it will.
So,
once you find out the truth.
Yeah, so you need to have a different mindset. You know, if you want to be in radio, the craft of radio is something that you should be in love with.
Yeah.
Being in love with music and then wanting to get into radio, you better find something else to do.
Something else. I literally just had a talk with one of my good friends, and he stated to me that he wants to just do music, but it isn't doing music. So, I mean, we're kind of at the age where if you haven't found your purpose and what you want to do, especially if it's music, because music is something is different now. It's not like you can't get into music expecting any kind of payoff immediately. That's just not going to happen. You pretty much have to have
lose money.
Yeah, you have to have exactly.
Unless your purpose is to sell ass and not actually make music.
Mm-hmm. But you can't get into the music at this age and expect it to be your livelihood.
Unless you're trying to be like Sugar Free or something, maybe like Slash.
But see,
Weird Al.
this person, he wants to do it for the love of music.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this,
better be generational.
And I hate to say there's a time limit or an age where you have to kind of switch over, because, I mean, if we're being real, there is.
Yeah.
Right?
No, because at one point, the oldest rapper I had seen actually make it was DMX. Because DMX, I think, was like 29 when It's Dark and Hell is Hot had came out. And then, like, it was a long time. And then 2 Chainz, me and 2 Chainz are like the same age.
Well, 2 Chainz had 2 careers.
Yeah, he did. He had made his inroads into the music industry, but when he really broke, he was like 35 or 36.
So when would you say is a good age if you don't really have any skin or teeth, you know what I'm saying, in the game right now? You may have had some in the past, but you don't have anything leading up to right now.
I think it's
23.
No, I think we're looking at it. I don't necessarily.
As a musician,
I don't think it's an age. I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's just a serious thing. Like if he's 44 and he's super serious about it, and he has the world around him where he can spend 16 hours a day on it, then he may have a shot. But if he can only spend 30 minutes every Wednesday on it, it's not going to go anywhere. I don't know if age has as much to do with it as what happens as we get older. Our time is a lot more narrow.
Right, because time freedom is a thing.
For sure.
So if you have time freedom in order to nurture that love, then yeah, okay.
But that's
pour into it. But if you don't, then because I mean, life is coming at us still. Regardless.
It was when Fat Joe said the whole thing, but like, look, you got to get a job while you're working on your art. Yeah. You know, you can't just be laid up with somebody eating, the kids' fruit snacks and all that and trying to record. I mean, yeah, you can.
Well, see, but that's acceptable to a certain age.
Yeah.
After a certain age, it's kind of like
if you're 37 trying to do that, it'd be like, really. Dude.
Or at least
Get a
transition
job.
to a music teacher and do that.
Be like me. Be a teacher.
Hey,
Be an educator. Do all these other
that's
things.
ideal though, because actually what you're doing is an ideal situation for a lot of people.
Look, a lot of people say if you can't do, teach. I say if you can't teach, you do.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Look, I had my 16 hours a day when I was in my 20s for like 5 years. I did the Kanye thing. I was making beats 5 days a week. Yes.
For 3 summers.
For like 5, I did that, so like it's a little bit different. But what I tell all of my students, and what I tell all my students, back to your point here, is like, you can take my class. It's a 10-month class where it's music production. I was like, I tell them up front, you are not going to be Kanye West, Jay-Z, or excuse me, Dr. Dre. Yeah. You're not going to be Monty Booker when you get out of this class. You're not going to be that. This is building the framework so that you can then take it to the next step.
Baby steps.
That's all that I can offer you. Because
shout out to Dr. Leo Marvin.
Shouts to Richard Dreyfuss.
What about Bob?
Yep. One of my favorite movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to approach it like that. And to me, that's more of a purpose thing. It's like you have to understand, like I tell my students, like I have 2 students right now in my Monday night class. They're super cool dudes. And I was like, look, you have to accept the fact that you guys are both trash. And you have to live in that. I need you to accept the fact that you're going to be trash for the next 12 months and just work on making yourself better. Because what happens when you try to be a producer or a rapper or whatever when you're older is you have this thing in your mind where you're the standard that you want to live up to. So if you try to make beats at 36, but you've had 16 or 20 years of listening to hip hop producers and you know what you want to sound like, and then you sit down and you make a beat and it sounds like when Cassidy was trying to make beats.
Oh my God.
Well, you're going to get discouraged and you're going to stop. I was like, you have to accept the fact that you're going to be ass.
Yeah.
You have to live in that. And otherwise, and just put in the reps and do it. And it's, to me, that's
hard to hear for some people.
It's the purpose, but I feel like people, after I say it a couple times, people laugh, but I'm like, no, you have to, it's a thing. Like you're coming in this class, you love hip hop, you know all this hip hop stuff, you know all the producers. You're at a disadvantage than my 12-year-old students that are just making beats because they don't know what their sound wants to be like. Like you have to.
They have no point of reference.
They don't, and so it's like you're working against your psyche. So I would say it's, to your point, Terry, I think it's harder. A lot harder because there's so many things working against you. I don't want to say it's impossible, but,
right? It's not impossible,
but you have to be realistic with all of the things that are harder to do when you're older.
It's possible if you're only doing it for the love.
Yeah,
that could only be the real reason why you do it. Because if you go into it at a 40-some-odd years old, making music with the intention of making money, you're not going to really go very far. Now, but if you making music just because you want to be heard, that's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think you can finagle yourself a lot easier in that manner.
Exactly.
So yeah, good conversation.
Yeah.